Senator Sullivan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the witnesses very much. Mrs. Ellinger, I want to extend my condolences too. Just read your testimony. Sounds like Jake was an incredible, amazing, gifted young man. I'm very sorry, really sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Is that his UT uniform on right there?
Yes, sir.
My mom went to UT, so
Awesome.
I've been a Longhorns fan for a long time. Let me ask a question. We have maybe you've met her. If you haven't, it would be really great because you're very similar to her. We have a very courageous woman in Alaska named Sandy Snodgrass. She's kind of had the same experience that you have. Her son Bruce was killed by a fentanyl overdose, like Jake. It was laced with something, and so she's done what you've done, which is kind of taken this horrible grief and that most people can't even imagine, and used it in a way to push for public policy changes in state law. She's done that in Alaska. And then she and I and our governor, we've teamed up on this big campaign we launched about 8 or 9 months ago in Alaska called One Pill Can Kill. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but what we're trying to do on that is to get to prevention, to let the young people in Alaska know that, hey, if you're taking a pill or smoking a joint, you might have no idea that this is laced with fentanyl. Believe it or not, my state in the last 2 years has had the highest overdose rates of fentanyl of any state in the country. Alaska, 4,000 miles from the border. So when people say, oh, what do you guys care up in Alaska? You're far away from the southern border. We care because it's killing our kids just like it's killing kids in Texas. So are you familiar with the One Pill Can Kill campaign, and have you guys done it in Texas? And I'd really like to get your sense of prevention. We're trying to we put this big campaign together, we've gotten all the high school kids and even junior high kids involved to do PSA announcements so they can learn from each other. I think it's most effective when it comes from peer to peer, not senators and governors telling them. So what's your sense on that? And I really appreciate your courage for being here. I know probably every single day you're missing your really wonderful son.
Yes, thank you so much. We actually, Governor Abbott in the state of Texas had a One Pill Kills campaign.
Oh, good.
And if you drive in the state of Texas on any highway, you will see signs that say One Pill Kills. And many people have also put up billboards with their children's pictures on them.
Wow.
Saying fentanyl kills. I think all of those things help. I 100% agree with you that coming from the younger generation is more impactful.
Yeah.
Part of the frustration for me has been, has anybody thinking about the fact that this is our future? These young people that are dying, that are getting wiped out in large numbers, that's the future of our country. So what is gonna happen in 10 years when we have this horrific gap?
Yeah.
Because we've lost so many of them. My son is in the NFL, and they do the Cause for Cleats.
Yeah.
Cleats for a Cause, I'm sorry. And he, and then one of his friends also, who he played with at UT, wore their One Pill Kills fentanyl awareness cleats and got a great response from that. I think, like Senator Cantwell said earlier, we have to come at this from every angle.
Yeah.
It can't be, here, let's just go here and let's look at this. It is like we were saying, it's a war.
It is a war.
And we're losing. We're losing bad.
Well, if you have ideas from what you learned in Texas on the One Pill Can Kill campaign, prevention, right? So young people are aware. A lot of young people are not aware at all that this is taking a pill like that that's not a prescribed pill that they got from a pharmacist can be a Russian roulette death sentence.
It's exactly what I call it, is Russian roulette. I mean, it's in cocaine, it's in pot, It's in all of the things that in our generation people could experiment with, and they had no fear of dying. They just were making a really stupid mistake.
Yeah.
And a bad choice.
Well, look, we might look at kind of nationalizing some of these ideas of prevention. Real quick, so thank you again. Chief, I just had a quick question, too, for you. You know, you served up in kind of the Pacific Northwest area and then down along the border. Any major differences? And then this is probably for the next panel, but what always really frustrates me on this is that Xi Jinping is a dictator, right? I mean, nobody does anything in China without his permission. And the flow that continues from China, you know, he did a deal with President Trump. He did a deal with President Biden to stop this flow. And, you know, it's more what we call promise fatigue with the Chinese. They make big announcements and they never keep their promises, even to our leaders. So what's your sense on kind of differences at the Pacific Northwest level that you've seen? That's Alaska, of course. And then any sense on the Chinese just ignoring it and wanting to kill young Americans?
I'll take the difference between Arizona and Washington first. The biggest difference I see is we would interdict massive loads in Tucson, Arizona. Tucson is 60 miles north of the international port of entry. And it was nonstop, and it was not unusual to get hundreds of thousands of pills or bulk powder form in the pounds in Arizona. That's much less likely up in Washington. It does happen, as we've seen and as I've testified. It does happen, but not nearly as often. And that's because you know, when it comes from the border, then it gets distributed throughout the nation. So we're getting smaller amounts up there, but the smaller amounts are just as deadly, and we have just as many fatal overdoses, and we have just as many social problems that come from fentanyl as every other city. So when I look at downtown Tucson and I look at downtown Spokane, if I didn't know where I was at, they would look very similar. And that's the impact that fentanyl has.
Great. And maybe for the record, I know I'm out of time, if you could answer the China question. I know it's a tough question, but you know, I just think they're flooding the zone on purpose.
Respectfully, Senator, I'm going to stay out of the geopolitics. I know the precursor chemicals, for the most part, are coming from China, and how we stop those, I'm not sure, because they're not coming to the United States, they're going to Mexico. So that would be the realm of you fine folks.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Sullivan.